Gopijanavalabha Girivaradhare Gopijanavalabha Girivaradhare Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunadira Vanachare Yamunadira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhare Yashodanandana Brajajana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunadira Vanachare Yamunadira Vanachare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Shri Radhe, Radha Damodara. Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. We have a full house. Thanks to our new residents, Chris and Jacinia, joining us all the way from Atlanta and Texas. Thank you. Also online, we have how many devotees? Quite a few. We have Ken joining us all the way from Hawaii. Eten, who visited us from California. Yeah, today is quite full. Thank you, dear devotees, for coming, and also our devotees dressing Radha Damodar and cooking. Okay, so today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 5, the creative impetus, chapter 14, the material world as a great forest of enjoyment. Text. No problem. 5:14:37. 5:14. So I'll just read the Sanskrit because it's in prose, and then we'll repeat the word for word together. Evang Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vaimam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hatyatapa Vahati Evam, in this way. Shanga relationships of enmity. The fructifying results of previous impious activities. with each other. Udwahati, become united by means of the marriage of sons and daughters. Ata, thereafter. Evahati, they give up the marriage or get a divorce. Translation. Although people may be enemies, people feel the desires again and again, they sometimes get married. Unfortunately, these marriages do not last very long, and the people involved are separated again by divorce or other means. Please repeat. Although people may be enemies, many people feel the desires again and again, they sometimes get married. Unfortunately, these marriages do not last very long, and the people involved are separated again by divorce or other means. As stated previously, every conditioned soul has a propensity to cheat, even in marriage. Everywhere in this material world, one conditioned soul is envious of another. For the time being, people may remain friends, but eventually they become enemies again and fight over money. Sometimes they marry and then separate by divorce or other means. On the whole, unity is never permanent. Due to the propensity, bodies always remain envious. Even in Krishna consciousness, separation and enmity take place due to the prominence of material propensities. Om Jnana Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitangena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shumate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyatesha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Text again. In order to fulfill their desires again and again. Unfortunately, these marriages do not last very long. The people involved are separated again by divorce or other means. So in this verse, Shukadev Goswami is explaining, yes, that actually form a relationship, a long-lasting relationship, is very difficult in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy. As is sung to the devotees every morning and to the spiritual master, Samsara Davanala Nala Lidha Loka. So this is a forest fire. This great forest of material sense enjoyment is a forest fire. And the impetus for that fire is the transformation of pure love of Krishna. When it comes in contact with the mode of passion, it actually turns into love. And Krishna says that it burns like fire in the heart of the living entity. And so the symbolic description of the material world as a fire is very appropriate because too much heat is not good. We like some heat, especially during this cold time. But, if it's like 85, it becomes a bit uncomfortable, even in the cabin. So similarly, even in the material world, is that persons, they want some sense gratification. It should be at 73 degrees and, a nice breeze blowing, maybe with some droplets of water, like good Southern California weather all the time. And, you can actually experience this sometimes. Nicely, it's loving exchanges. This person is speaking your love language. If it's, acts of service or quality time, this is going on. However, it doesn't last very long. And the reason for that is because it's all based on a desire to enjoy the senses separately from Krishna or separately from the master of the senses. So when living entities, you're asking them, people in your life, you're asking them, oh, how's it going? And they say, okay, things are going well. And then maybe a couple days or a couple weeks or even a couple months, or even a new marriage for that matter, couple of years, oh, it's not going so well. They are screaming at each other. Couple, you were at the ceremony, and these persons were declaring their love for each other. It seemed like they were match made, in heaven. They fit really well together. They know each other, and now all of a sudden, they can't even stand the sight of each other. So this is because the basis of those loving exchanges is a desire to actually enjoy separately. Yeah. So this is why Prabhupada put a lot of emphasis in putting the best of himself in his books, because this problem can actually be resolved through education. So if one is actually educated about Krishna, the science of Krishna and the science of God, then you understand that even though these propensities are there in the body, in the mind, because you're carrying them over from so many lifetimes, you're aware that actually, and although I'm Anandamaya Bhyasa, so I have a desire to actually enjoy, you know where this desire is coming from. It's actually coming from Krishna, So the reason why lusty propensities are, seen to be the greatest thing is that they can't actually take it any further. So it seems like it has a divine source intuitively, like the desire to enjoy, the desire to be happy, the desire for permanence. So in other words, the qualities of Satchidananda, these are actually quite self-evident for every living entity. You can see it in people's motivations. They want things to stay on. There's a desire for knowledge, and there's a desire for happiness. So everybody is aware of this self-evidently. And so it seems like if you just achieve these things, then you are being transcendent. You're achieving a level of existence, a level of life that is great. That's okay. You understand that intuitively. But the need for education comes in is that you actually need to know where they come from. Because Maya's job, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So Maya's job is actually to cover the source, is to cover where this desire for permanence, happiness, and knowledge actually comes from. That's Maya's job. So it's not that, yes, I recognize these qualities, that actually if I achieve these things, then I'll be transcendent. So that's there. But how did I actually come to be in this material world or in this world? So Maya's job covers that over and makes it seem like this is all there is. And so when you get born and you go through education, you have a job, Maya's job makes it seem like this is all there is. So that's why the knowing about Krishna, knowing about the spiritual world is there, because the way this world is constructed, and how the material energies are flowing, is she has two departments. One is a covering potency, and one is a throwing potency. So if a person gives up a relationship marriage, that's really what happens, is that there's a forgetfulness of where we were. And great psychologists have actually written about this. There's one clinical psychologist who's famous for studying marriage clinically. Before it was just done like qualitatively with different questionnaires. But he found that the remedies that are given they weren't actually good enough to correct failing relationships and failing marriages. So Mahatma Prabhu, Dharmapatni, Mother Janavi, she's a well-known relationship counselor in ISKCON, and she uses this system. It's called the Gottman method, named after the founder, John Gottman. And what he did was they studied marriage for 20 years, over 3,000 couples. So they had apartments in Seattle, and these apartments, they were kitted out with different cameras, and you would wear like a pacemaker, like, that would measure your pulse. And then they would invite you to come over for a weekend, and they would be like, okay, just go about what you would do with your life, you can, but just like be as much as possible in the apartment, So, okay, if you need to go outside and run, we will monitor different things. But the things that they were measuring were like heart rate, eye movements, and mainly what you were saying. So like any forest fire, there would be arguments that would spring up over the weekend. And based on studying so many couples over 20 years, he was able to establish that within 15 minutes, he can say whether this relationship is going to last or not. And they predicted within a 91% confidence interval. So 91%, they could tell a relationship whether if it's going to end up in divorce or not. So now this is quite a great breakthrough, for the study of marriage and long-term relationships. But, they weren't satisfied with that. And so then what they then proceeded to do was that, well, okay, we are able to now predict very confidently, based on what the person says, how they feel when they're in an argument, how their heart rate changes, are they like calm, like while they're talking, or, do they get elevated, their heart rate gets elevated, etc. So then they devised the course on how to actually intervene. And basically this course is like based on 7 principles. He's got a book, it's called 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work. And so these principles, he's found that when they intervene in a troubled relationship, it's actually, they're able to save them. 87% of them, they're able to save. So they get them pretty good results. Now, this idea, these ideas, it's based on, if you think about it, it's basically based on the principles that, okay, in order for you to be Krishna conscious, and you come, now if we enter the arena of Krishna conscious relationships, in order for a Krishna conscious relationship to work, Prabhupada can be cited as saying, well, first be conscious, and then be Krishna conscious. So there's this principle in Krishna consciousness that you add Krishna in your life. Lord Chaitanya even spoken about it. There's a verse, maybe our pundits can help. Stane stita shrutigatam. Maybe you can, Tarka Prabhu or Yashadev Prabhu, maybe you can post it and I can. But basically, Lord Chaitanya says, come as you are. So it's not that you need to change your varna. You don't need to change your ashram. Just come as you are and hear about Krishna. So just add Krishna into your life. So the idea here is that if you actually just cultivate your body, your mind, you can actually make these long-term relationships work. That's the idea. Even in the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, you can add Krishna and you can actually make it work. So this use of different material technologies, because that's really what they do. Yes, okay, in this age, the relationships are failing because of these reasons. He talks about the four horsemen. Let's try to find them. Jnana, is this the one? Okay, we'll read the verse. First sign. So basically, the whole principle in Krishna consciousness is that you can actually put yourself in a position to be successful. So from a material point of view, you can actually put yourself in a position to be successful. Now, yes, bhakti grows in any condition, and it's actually independent. So a lot of devotees who've had 30, 40-year marriages, they'll tell you, we didn't need so much of information to basically stay in our relationship. So they didn't need to do these astrological predictions to find 100% compatibility. And, even 30, 40 years, you see, they still argue and still tension and friction, but they have put Krishna in the center. And so that's been, what has kept them together. So from a material point of view, they shouldn't have stayed together. But because they've added Krishna in the center, they're still able to stay together. So that's there. But also marriage, even devotees, like you can go on the Grihastha Vision team, they've got different resources on how to prepare for long-term relationships such as marriage. And even then they discuss that you can, if the problems arise, so in the beginning there's the infatuation phase, and then after that, then some familiarity enters, and then there's some friction. So then you have two options. Either you can stay in this relationship and just be miserable for life. So because I made a vow, okay, let me just stay in it and be miserable. And okay, Dharma does give you some shelter. You are taking shelter of making a promise, but still you're not so happy. Or you can get the skills that are needed, and then you can actually have a very wonderful, happy life with your partner in Krishna consciousness. So they basically make the observation, these devotees, the Grihastha Vision team devotees, that yes, we have seen marriages in ISKCON work because of keeping Krishna in the center, but the devotees aren't happy. And so they are saying that, well, okay, we put this website together and counseling system together so that actually devotees can be happy with their partner in enlightenment. So that's the whole idea. This is the point I'm trying to make, is that there is material knowledge that's available to actually minimize the distress in a long-term relationship. Computing propensity remain envious. Even in Krishna consciousness, separation and enmity take place due to the prominence of material propensities. So these material propensities, you can actually utilize different material technologies that are available and knowledge that's available to actually minimize them so that you're happy. So one of the key trends that they found, how they actually, these researchers, clinical researchers in marriage, the John Gottman Institute, they found the first sign is a harsh startup. So the example here is that when you're Okay, so now the example that they cite is there's a couple and they are now speaking about one person not pulling their weight in terms of doing the chores around the house. So this is generally speaking the men who don't pull their weight. So they're approaching the subject, and but the way the subject is being approached, a harsh startup is that if you just start and be accusatory instead of using like non-violent communications tools. And then the second sign is the four horsemen. So the horsemen are cited in they're cited in the Bible as being the precursors to the apocalypse. So the first one is criticism. So just being very critical during an argument. Second one is being contempt. So holding your partner in contempt. So in other words, Maya has covered you over about why you respected this person, why you actually see them valuable, and you just, hold them in contempt. Third one is being very defensive. And then the fourth one is stonewalling. So it's like, the person is being very critical, like you're not doing the chores around the house, and then, saying it in a very contemptuous way, making fun of you. And then you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna tune out. I'll just switch on the TV, and this person can just speak and speak and speak, and I'm just not there. I'm not even gonna respond to this person. So that's stonewalling. Yeah, and then the third sign is flooding. Let's see. So just being physically and psychologically overwhelmed, just like Arjuna as well, when he saw his grandfather's sons and his cousin brothers on the other side, and he was very much overwhelmed, and he actually dropped his bow. So for a warrior to drop his bow and then proceed to collapse in his chariot and sit down, being so demoralized, that's an example of being flooded. So yeah, in the argument, things can get that way. And then the fourth sign is body language. Example that's given here. When we monitor couples for bodily changes during a tense discussion, we can see just how physically distressing flooding is. One of the most apparent of these physical reactions is that the heart speeds up, pounding away at more than 100 beats per minute, even as high as 165. In contrast, a typical heart rate for a man is about 30, who is about 30 years old, is 76. And for a woman, well, same age, it's 82. So they just see your heart rate, and it's like, okay, if it's just like going to the level of like you're running on a treadmill just to have a discussion about doing chores, okay, yeah, I think you're done. It's not gonna last in this relationship, yeah. Yeah, so then they've got different things that can fifth signs, failed repair attempts. So like a repair attempt is like when you try to like make a joke and the person, you're having a discussion, and then either you stick your tongue out or you're just trying to like lighten the mood, and the person's just like not having it. Yeah, they say that, okay, this one is done. And then bad memories. So when asked about how your relationship started, and you can't even remember the details anymore, they ask, okay, what qualities did you see in this person? So in other words, Maya's propensity to cover things over, just being very forgetful. So these are some of the observations that they made, and yeah, I highly recommend this book. It's pretty good. So Lord Kapila he speaks about this. Basically, the prominence of material propensities. Basically, they occur due to devotional service mixing with the three modes of material nature. So there's devotional service in the mode of goodness, which is what we should all aspire for, because goodness brings about clarity. So the quality of goodness, it's clarity, knowledge. So everything is clear, and it brings about a happiness that's long lasting. So in the beginning, it might taste like poison, as Krishna describes happiness in the mode of goodness, but in the end, it's just nectar all the way, right? So cultivating devotional service in the mode of goodness, that's the facility it gives you. It gives you a long-lasting situation. So here, the long-term relationship that's being discussed is between spouses, husband and wife. But this goes with all long-term relationships in devotional service, is that devotees that we will stay friends with, who will be persons that we can confide in, these relationships are characterized by one in goodness. So Lord Kapila he says, he gives definitions of devotional service in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So he says the worship, excuse me. Let's read devotional service and goodness. Ignorance first, yeah. So this is in chapter 29 of the 3rd canto. You can find this. So devotional service executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent, and angry, and who is a separatist, is considered to be in the mode of darkness. The worship of deities in the temple by a separatist with the motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. When a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebriety or fruit of activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. So, what characterizes devotional service in the lower modes is a separate mentality. So basically, the separatist mentality is that you are materially motivated while you're doing devotion, and you're thinking about your body and your senses. So the one in ignorance, where one is proud, violent, and angry, the person is unable to tolerate those urges, which are spoken about by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction. The urges of the tongue, belly, and the genitals, the urges, the actions of anger, the mind. So these are bodily urges. So one who is in ignorance is actually not able to tolerate this. And so for the most part, they're thinking a lot about their body and how it feels. And so if their partner is making them, triggering these different urges, then there's pride, anger, etc. And so then the relationship is characterized by ignorance. And so then the satisfaction that is gotten from the relationship is that in the beginning, it tastes like poison, and in the end, it also tastes like poison. So the courtship is not nice, and it also doesn't last very long. And then in the mode of passion, again, one sees that my my growth in Krishna consciousness is separate. You see it as being separate from the person. So therefore you have your own program. And so if the person disturbs your program, so here the example that's given is the person who just worships the deity. So they're just focused on staying pure. They don't want to be touched by anyone who's going to make them impure. I'm on the altar, I'm worshipping Radha Damodar. Everybody else is further down, and it's just my program. So they're just thinking about me, and the deity. Just me and the deity, me and the deity. So my sadhana and the deity. My sadhana, my spiritual master, my vow. So it's just, and anyone who comes in, it's actually is a disturbance. And so then Krishna, he says that the happiness that they will feel in that relationship, basically, is that in the beginning it'll taste like nectar. So there will be infatuation, it will be very nice, but in the end, it will be poison. And then here, devotional service in the mode of goodness, a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebriety of fruitive activities. So you see yourself as a servant. So there isn't a separatist mentality that, the persons I live with, whether you're here at the ashram and the temple, you're working for an organization, KP's Gita Nagari, there isn't this separatist idea that my sadhana, my devotion to my spiritual master, it's like separate. No, you see it as one, and you're always like trying to offer. And so Rupa Goswami, he speaks about, even in Nectar of Devotion, the different loving exchanges. And these loving exchanges, they've been rediscovered by, again, another psychologist who, let's see. They've been rediscovered as they called love languages. So Rupa Goswami wrote this, many hundreds of years ago, this Nectar of Instruction, in the 16th century. And he says, offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad, offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. So relationship in the mode of goodness is really, you can see this is a whole love language. Offering gifts, revealing your mind, so spending quality time, inquiring so you're interested in the person, accepting prasad and offering prasad. So prasad, you can actually reframe it as the love language of sense of touch. So you can see in Indian households, like there's a great emphasis on eating and less emphasis on like public displays of affection, so like people just kissing in public and hugging each other. But there's a great emphasis on eating. Why? Because the tongue, just by offering prasad, right? And Rupa Goswami in the first text, he says that the tongue, the belly, and the genitals are all connected. And there's also the proverbial saying that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. It's all linked. And so a civilized way of actually showing your affection, exchanging the love through physical touch is actually to offer prasad. You're stimulating the tongue. So just like even Prabhupada, he's can also be cited as saying a civilized way of eating, consuming the blood of the cow is not through meat, is not through slaughter. Just consume the milk. Just take care of the cow. The cow's milk is a transformation of her blood. I remember I had a vivid experience. The first time I had paneer, I was like, this is just like meat. Like the texture, like so rich and everything. And there's been more advances nowadays with different soy, etc. when Beyond Meat, they released really plant-based protein that very resembles meat like that. But the whole idea here is that there is a civilized way of, instead of using the mode of passion to actually display affection and exchange love, you exchange it in the mode of goodness. And then the relationship will be long-lasting. So, yes, so dear we do have experts on the line. Mother Rajalila, I think, let's see. Sorry. Mother Rajalila was citing in a previous class how, yeah, there's a lot of misunderstanding, in devotees and trying to stay married. And one misunderstanding is also the understanding of sex within Krishna conscious marriage and how to navigate, that attachment. And she was saying that quite a large majority, over half, was citing a Guru Maharaj that a lot of the breakups were actually caused by this misunderstanding, not being on the same page. So yeah, so this is a great topic on how to actually make long-lasting relationships in Krishna consciousness work. But fortunately, we have so much advice. We have Rupa Goswami, Nectar of Instruction, and we have Lord Kapiladev as we are citing. And there's also these material experts who've studied material propensities in great detail and how those can actually creep into a relationship, even amongst devotees, and how we can avoid these. And so, yeah, so today we should pray to Radha Damodar to help us with remembrance. So the Lord is the Lord of the heart. He is the source of knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And so even we can accumulate volumes of knowledge about how to actually make a relationship work. The key thing is, are you going to remember it when the four horsemen come? When there's signs of flooding, because emotional responses tend to cover knowledge over. So if we keep a prayerful mood and attitude towards the Lord, to helping, seeing that, oh, my Lord, this is your devotee. It's not a material skill for me to interact with devotees. It's not like, yeah, I'm trying to manipulate them or anything. Please help me to actually, be an instrument and actually just be of service to this devotee. Hare Krishna. Are there any? I'll give preference to our in-person audience. If there's any questions, reflections, or contentions, and then I'll come to our online participants. Do you have anything? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Just hold this.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for such an amazing, inspiring class on a very important topic. My question, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to where Krishna is at the center. What type of material compatibility do we still need? Or do we not need it? If Krishna is at the center, do we, does that allow us to sort of find compatibility with anyone?
Okay, so Mahatma Prabhu, I'm just gonna cite, I've only just entered long, a committed relationship. So I'm not an expert, but fortunately, I can remember what they said. That's my only value. So I attended a preparation for marriage workshop at Mahatma Prabhu, and very nice 2-day lecture. And they basically come up with different green flags, so what makes things work, and then different red flags, right? So their perspective on compatibility is that yes, devotees make use of astrology, and that's good, right? But really, the compatibility comes in the work that you put in. So the astrological chart, and also the advice of the astrologer looking into different areas of your life, the inputs that they get is when you were born. So the time that you were born, where you were born, and so that's their primary inputs. But the mind changes, and it also changes according to when you come in contact with Krishna consciousness. Right? So there's still some work that needs to be done. And so what he says is that, like the Grihastha Vision team, they've got 123 questions, premarital questions. He's also got his own set of questions, also over 100. And he says, working through these questions, this is actually the work of compatibility, because they go into details of like your family, how your friends may influence your relationship, where you come from, how you were raised, all sorts of details. And so that work will determine. And then the big green flag, he says, is that both partners actually have to be committed to making it work. Now, I mean, growing up, I just had this idea, and it persisted even in Krishna consciousness, that, well, being in a male body, you're supposed to pursue. So if the girl is not interested, you just pursue and you try to convince her otherwise, And this is what we're told. But actually, when it comes to a long-term relationship, if the person is not interested, sorry, it's not going to work. Like, you actually aren't compatible. So the chart may come back and say 90%, but because how the person is exercising and even the astrologer can come and say these people will have a wonderful marriage. If the person is using their independence to say, no, I'm not actually not interested in this person, it's not going to work, you see. So this is why Mahatma Prabhu and his wife, Mother Janavi, are saying that how the person uses their independence is actually the key driver to compatibility. There's material compatibility, but then there's also the individual, So I prefer that answer. So so relationships, you just got to work, put in the work, Yeah. Any other? We have like 2-3 minutes. Anything? You wanna, so that they can hear you?
Sure. My question is not quite yet formed, so hopefully it comes out as I'm speaking. But it's in regard to what you were speaking about in terms of it was like being in the different modes in the relationship. Like if a relationship is more in the mode of ignorance versus passion or goodness, and the examples of being in ignorance were something of, can you remind me?
So being proud, being angry, that's what characterizes devotional service. So just think about the body and the urges of the actions of anger, the mind's demands. So basically those urges get triggered by your partner. And so then if that characterizes the relationship, then you can see there's a lot of ignorance in the relationship.
So what is the, I guess, process of elevating, I guess, clocking, being able to like clock, oh yeah, this is, I'm acting in anger right now, and elevating from that. So for example, elevating from ignorance to passion to goodness. And then perhaps what happens when one partner is in ignorance and one's in passion, or one's in goodness and one's in ignorance. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of compatibility, how do you navigate that?
Okay.
Is it clear? Hopefully.
Yeah, so we're out of time. But thank you, dear devotees, for attending. I guess we can talk about this a bit later. Okay. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Pramanande. Haribo. Principal Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Dhananda, Shri Advaita Shri Sari, Purava Ki Jai, Shri Gopal, Shama Kumara Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Dham Ki Jai, Vila Chal Shri Bhagavan Bhumi Dham, Shri Dham Dham Ki Jai, Ramai Ki Jai, Ki Jai, Atma Ki Jai, Osvedi Ki Jai, Samavedi Ki Jai. The Lord Jesus Christ, and God, and the Son, the King, was King, and possessions for Buddha King, Father, and the the symbol glory, it was the symbol glory, right? Orders to you and all of that orders for the Jai. You just you're filling up the translation, just a little. Thank you, dear devotees, Taraka Prabhu, Mother Yashoda, for joining us this morning, and we shall see you tomorrow. Hare